Have you ever stared at the sun so long you started seeing things that aren't there? Have you ever stood in the middle of a scorching wasteland at high noon, the air vibrating and melting, turning the horizon into liquid silver, while your dehydrated brain paints salvation where there is only death? That's exactly what humanity is going through right now. We are being sold the most expensive, massive, and dangerous hallucination in the history of civilization. Welcome to the kingdom of smoke, mirrors, and black gold. Scroll through any social media feed, flip through a glossy magazine, and you'll see them, the renders. Flawless, gleaming images cooked up by top-tier graphic designers in London and New York. They promise us paradise. They tell us that in a place where the shade hits 122 degrees Fahrenheit, where the wind strips your skin like sandpaper, and where water costs more than gas, the new cradle of humanity is about to be born. We're told, forget Dubai. Dubai is yesterday's news, a playground for 90s new money. Saudi Arabia is the new prophet. They pitch Vision 2030 not as an economic roadmap, but as holy scripture. The Crown Prince, this modern-day pharaoh clutching an iPad, promises to build the pyramids of the 21st century. Only he's trading stone for glass, and using our collective dreams of technological immortality instead of slaves. You hear those sweet-talking anchors on CNN? They're breathless, hyping up flying taxis, AI that picks up your trash, artificial moons, and ski resorts in the middle of the desert. Yeah, you heard that right. Skiing in the desert. It sounds like absolute lunacy, a fever dream. But Wall Street investors are nodding along, dumping trillions of dollars into the sand. Why? Because the smell of cash overpowers the stench of burning ozone. But let's tear down this digital facade. Let's turn off the projectors and look reality dead in the eye. And reality doesn't smell like high-end cologne. It smells like fear. Saudi Arabia isn't a country from the future. It's a nation running in sheer panic from its own past. But the past is gaining on them. This is a gas station state that just realized the tank is almost empty, and the next exit is an eternity away. All this futuristic hysteria, all these mega projects defying the laws of physics and common sense, they aren't born from prosperity. They are born from agony. It's a desperate attempt to buy a ticket into the post-oil era using a currency that loses value by the day. The royal family knows the truth. The second the global grid switches to EVs, the moment the green transition becomes irreversible, their palaces turn back into pumpkins, and their solid gold toilets become nothing more than scrap metal in a worthless wasteland. So, they're going all in. They are building a blockbuster movie set with no cast. We're watching a grandiose stage play where the sheikhs are the actors, and we are the audience, hypnotized by the CGI. But if you look closer, if you zoom in on that perfect facade, you'll see the cracks. You'll see the blood of migrant workers mixed right into the concrete. You'll see brutal repression wrapped in the shiny packaging of reform. You'll see a medieval theocracy strapping on a VR headset and convincing itself it's the new Silicon Valley. It is the greatest bluff of the millennium. They're selling us Neom. They're selling us the line. They're selling us the Mukab, a cube massive enough to swallow 20 Empire State Buildings. But nobody is asking the million-dollar question. Who the hell is going to live there? Who is going to voluntarily lock themselves inside a glass test tube in a Martian landscape monitored by cameras 24/7? They claim it's a city for the free, yet it's being built by an absolute monarchy where a single tweet can land you on death row. Feel the irony? It's hanging in the air, thick and sticky as crude oil. The global elite and investors right here at home are so blinded by greed, they'll look the other way on dismembered journalists, the bombing of Yemen, and the total stripping of women's rights, just to get a slice of the pie. Consultants from McKinsey and BCG write up beautiful strategies. Architects from Zaha Hadid draw up fantastic curves. But at the end of the day, they are just overpaid morticians trying to put makeup on a corpse. Because you cannot build the future on a foundation of fossil fuels and feudalism. You can't just buy progress like you buy a superyacht. Progress is culture, it's freedom, it's the clash of ideas, not a clash of wallets. Saudi Arabia is trying to leap over a canyon in 2 jumps, going straight from Bedouin tents into Hyperloop pods. But history is unforgiving to those who try to cheat the jump. They usually end up splattered at the bottom of the gorge. And when this bubble bursts, and it will burst because the laws of economics are just as ruthless as the laws of gravity, the shock wave will circle the globe. We won't witness the birth of a new civilization. We'll be staring at the most expensive ghost town on Earth, a monument to human hubris, slowly buried by the sand year after year. The wind will howl through the empty sockets of the skyscrapers, telling the legend of the men who thought they could buy eternity by the barrel. The mirage will fade, and only the desert will remain. The desert was always here before us, and it will be here long after. Today, we begin our journey into the dark heart of this mirage. Buckle up. It's going to be a scorching ride. Picture a scar, not just a scratch on the surface of the earth, but a deep surgical incision 105 miles long, bleeding not blood, but money and blind ambition. This is the line. Even the name sounds like a death sentence to geometry and common sense. We're bombarded with gleaming promo videos showing happy people in white futuristic clothes floating through hanging gardens. But let's step down from the heavens of CGI and back to the unforgiving ground of physics. What exactly is the line? It's 2 solid mirrored glass walls rising 1,600 feet into the air, taller than the Empire State Building, stretching from the Red Sea deep into a dead desert. This isn't a city, it's a wall. It's the greatest wall in human history. But unlike the Great Wall of China, it's not designed to keep barbarians out. It's designed to isolate its own inhabitants from reality. For thousands of years, architects have built cities as circles, as sprawling grids that grow organically outward, because it makes sense. It's efficient. It's natural. The Saudi crown prince decided he's smarter than 5 millennia of urban planning. He decided to stretch a city into a single string. Imagine you live at mile 40, and your friend or your office is at mile 75. In a normal, sprawling metropolis like New York or LA, you're neighbors. Here, you live on different planets. They promise you a mythical high-speed train that will rocket across that distance in 20 minutes. But transit engineers are quietly laughing in their sleeves. The technology to smoothly and safely move millions of people at those speeds, making stops every couple of miles, simply does not exist. It is a logistical nightmare taken to the absolute extreme. But let's talk about the glass. A mirrored facade. Sounds gorgeous in a pitch deck, right? Blending in with nature. What an arrogant lie. This is an ecological guillotine. Imagine a vertical mirror covering hundreds of square miles, planted right in the middle of ancient bird migration routes. Millions, billions of birds flying from Europe to Africa won't even see the barrier. They will smash into this invisible wall of death in a relentless rain of feathers and blood. It will be a wailing wall for the world's ornithologists. Mountains of dead birds piling up at the gates of paradise. And what about the sun? Mirrors in the desert. Do you understand what that means? It's a giant magnifying glass, a thermal death ray. The reflected light will create temperatures next to these walls so extreme you could fry an egg right on the sand. They are going to engineer a murderous microclimate that will scorch every living thing outside the city, just to keep the inside artificially cool. And now we get to the most terrifying part, the inside. They call it a cognitive city, a smart city. Corporate buzzwords masking a digital panopticon dressed up as luxury living. In the line, you won't have keys, you won't have a wallet, you won't have privacy. Cameras, sensors, and trackers will be in every corner, embedded in every wall, probably even in your bathroom. An AI, affectionately named Neom, will know more about you than you know about yourself. Where you walked, who you talked to, what you ate, how fast your heart beats when you look at a portrait of the king. This isn't a utopia. It's a dystopia that would make George Orwell roll in his grave. You pay your rent with your freedom. It's a gilded cage where a social credit system, straight out of the darkest episodes of Black Mirror, will decide if you're worthy of taking the elevator up to the top levels to see real sunlight. or if you belong at the bottom, in the artificial twilight, scrubbing the floors with the rest of the service class. Because a structure like this, narrow and unimaginably tall, will inevitably breed class segregation. Literally vertical segregation. The elite will live at the top, basking in the sunset, while the plebs, those happy service workers, will live in the underbelly, cast in eternal shadows, only seeing the sky on LED screens. It is a 1,600-foot-tall layer cake of inequality, and this cake is sitting on sand. Geologists are tearing their hair out. Building a behemoth like this on unstable ground in a seismically active region near the Red Sea is pure engineering madness. The foundation has to go down dozens of feet, millions of tons of concrete that need to be shipped, poured, and reinforced. The price tag for this project is estimated at $1 trillion. But any contractor will tell you, multiply the estimate by $3 trillion. The GDP of major nations buried in a single line. Why? Why voluntarily build a prison? The answer is as simple as it is chilling. This isn't a city for the living. It's a mausoleum. It's the Great Pyramid of Giza for the cyberpunk age. Pharaohs built tombs to immortalize their names, to defy time itself. Mohammed bin Salman is building the Line for the exact same reason. He doesn't need happy residents. He needs a monument to his own ego that can be seen from space. And just like any tomb, Neom will be cold, dead, and terrifyingly quiet. Humanity is chaos. It's noise. It's unpredictability. The Line does not tolerate chaos. It is completely sterile. There is no room for a pop-up street market, a busker, graffiti on a wall, or a human mistake. It's a surgical operating room stretched across the horizon. And when the money runs out, and it will run out, either when the world moves off oil or when the next market crash tanks the price, those mirrors will lose their shine. The glass will be coated in a thick layer of dust. The elevators will freeze, and the Line will become the longest ruin in the universe. The glass spine of a dead dragon rotting in the desert. A grim reminder to future archaeologists of what happens when human hubris commits an assault on geography and physics just to get a pretty picture on Instagram. Have you ever tried to freeze hell over? Not metaphorically, but literally. Take a chunk of the underworld where rocks melt and bury it in fake snow so wealthy tourists can go skiing while sipping iced lattes. It sounds like the plot of a dystopian novel a publisher would reject for being too unbelievable. Yet this is the central pillar of the Saudi project Trojena, a ski resort in a country where sand clogs your pores and the sun works like a laser cutter. They paint us idyllic pictures of lakes and snow-capped peaks. But let's talk about thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is a cruel mistress, and you can't bribe her with petrodollars. To create snow in the desert, you have to burn enough energy to power a small city. It's an ecological crime disguised as ecotourism. They feed us corporate buzzwords about sustainable development and net zero. But how can you talk about zero emissions when you are literally trying to air condition the outdoors? Just think about the sheer absurdity of that. Air conditioning the outdoors. In Riyadh and Jeddah, summer temperatures are already breaking 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not just a heat wave, it's the biological limit of survival for Homo sapiens. There is a concept called wet bulb temperature. It's the threshold where the human body can no longer cool itself through sweating. If that temperature hits 95 degrees, you die. It doesn't matter how much water you chug. It doesn't matter how deep the shade is. Your blood practically boils, your organs shut down, and you drop dead from heat stroke. The Persian Gulf is one of the few places on Earth where this nightmare scenario is becoming a reality today. And right in the middle of this climatic crematorium, they are building glass cities. Glass and concrete are the absolute worst materials for the desert. They absorb heat, turning the city into a giant convection oven. During the day, Neom's mirrored walls will bake, and at night, they will radiate that heat, refusing to let the air cool down by even a single degree. It's a death trap. To survive inside it, you need AC. Millions, billions of air conditioners running on overdrive 24/7. The sick irony is that while AC cools the inside, it blasts scorching hot air to the outside. making the streets even hotter. It's a vicious cycle of self-destruction. The more they cool their palaces, the faster they boil everyone trapped outside the walls alive. And where is the water coming from? Saudi Arabia drank its ancient underground aquifers dry last century, trying to grow wheat in the desert. Another genius master plan that ended in catastrophe. Now they're drinking the sea. Desalination. It sounds high-tech and life-saving, but do you know what's left after you strip the fresh water out of the ocean? Brine, a toxic, hypersaline chemical sludge that they pump straight back into the Persian Gulf. It is the slow murder of the ocean. They are turning their own coastline into a dead, salty swamp where not a single fish or coral reef can survive. They are annihilating the very ecosystem they swear to protect in their glossy brochures. But the most darkly hilarious part is their attempt to play God with the weather. Cloud seeding. Planes spray chemicals, desperately trying to wring a single drop of rain out of sparse clouds. They bomb the sky with chemicals, hoping to trigger a downpour. But when the rain finally hits, it doesn't bring life. It brings a flood. The bone-dry, sun-baked earth can't absorb the water. Flash floods tear through the streets of Jeddah, washing away cars and people, turning smart cities into disaster zones. Nature always strikes back. She doesn't forgive this kind of arrogance. You can build the tallest skyscraper. You can buy the best engineers. You can draw whatever chart you want in PowerPoint, but you cannot cancel the sun. The sun is going to shine, and it is going to burn. And all those plastic trees, all those artificial lawns demanding gallons of precious water every hour, they will all burn. A green Saudi Arabia is an oxymoron. It's a fake. It's an attempt to put a band-aid on gangrene. The climate is changing, and this region is on the absolute front lines. In 30-40 years, a massive chunk of the peninsula will be uninhabitable for humans without a spacesuit. And when that day comes, their glass paradise will turn into the most expensive tanning bed for skeletons in human history. The desert has no tolerance for fakes. It knows how to wait, and it will take back what's its own, melting their ambitions under the rays of an unforgiving star. Have you ever looked beneath the foundation of the pyramids? What did you see down there? Stones? No, bones. Historians love to tell us that the Great Pyramids weren't built by slaves, but by paid laborers who were fed meat and given medical care. Oh, the bitter irony. Because the pyramids of the 21st century, these gleaming glass monuments of Saudi Arabia, are absolutely being built by slaves. Slaves with iPhones, slaves with passports, but slaves all the same. The kafala system. Remember that word. It sounds like an exotic spice, but it tastes like blood and sand. It is legalized slavery, state-sanctioned human trafficking, and it is the absolute bedrock of the entire Persian Gulf's economic miracle. You arrive from Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, or the Philippines. They promise you the moon, a job as a driver, a construction worker, a nanny. You sell your ancestors' land, you chain your family to 3 generations of debt just to buy the plane ticket and the visa. And then you step off the plane in Riyadh, and in that exact second, your life is over. They confiscate your passport. Your kafil, your sponsor, your employer, your master, effectively becomes your god. Without his permission, you can't quit, you can't change jobs, you can't even leave the country. You are property. You are a talking tool, and this tool is thrown straight into the furnace. Out on the Neom construction sites, under a blazing sun where the ambient heat literally melts the rubber on the soles of your boots, hundreds of thousands of invisible people are breaking their backs. They live in labor camps that look like livestock pens, crammed 10 to 12 people in a single unventilated room, sharing 1 toilet per floor. They work 12, 14 hours a day, 0 days off, for a paycheck that is often delayed for months. And sometimes, it never comes at all. Wait, brother, tomorrow, brother, inshallah. But tomorrow never comes. Only death comes. The mortality rate among migrant workers is a closely guarded secret, protected better than Riyadh's nuclear ambitions. Officially, they die of natural causes, heart attacks, cardiac arrest, at 25 years old. Do you honestly believe there's an epidemic of spontaneous heart attacks among healthy young men? Or maybe, just maybe, human hearts aren't designed to survive grueling manual labor in 120-degree heat with no water and no rest. Human rights groups scream about this from the rooftops, but their cries are drowned out by the roar of excavators and the clinking of coins. The bodies are shipped home in cheap plywood boxes, and the families are told, "It was the will of Allah." No compensation, no investigations. Just the next shipment of meat arriving on a red-eye flight from Dhaka. But it's not just the construction workers. Walk into any wealthy Saudi mansion. There, gliding silently in the shadows, you'll find Filipina and Indonesian women, the maids. They scrub the filth, cook the meals, and raise the children of sheikhs, while their own children grow up as orphans thousands of miles away. And what happens behind the closed doors of those sprawling villas? Rape, beatings, humiliation, boiling water poured over their skin. The internet is full of leaked videos showing Saudi madams viciously beating their maids over a poorly ironed shirt. And where do you run? The police will just drag you back to your master. The embassy? You have to survive long enough to get there. So many choose the window. Jumping from a fifth-story balcony is the only possible way to hand in a resignation letter. It is suicide born of pure despair. And this entire glossy facade is built squarely on top of this mountain of corpses, this ocean of tears and sweat. Next time you see a slick promo video for Vision 2030, where a grinning prince points at a miniature model of a city of the future, remember this: that model is glued together with human blood. Every skyscraper, every artificial island, every mile of perfectly laid asphalt is paid for with the lives of people whose names will never be known. Top-tier architects from our own major cities fly over there chasing the almighty dollar, and they shamefully look the other way. Global soccer superstars signing $100 million contracts claim they are staying out of politics. They are all accomplices. They are all beneficiaries of this meat grinder. Saudi Arabia wants to buy its way into the civilized world, wants to host the World Cup, wants to host the Expo. But civilization isn't measured by the square footage of glass on your skyline. It's measured by how you treat human beings. And here, a human being is just a consumable, a battery you toss in the trash when it runs out of juice. They advertise Neom as a city of humanism, a human-centric utopia. What an absolute lie. It is a city built on the bones of slaves for the entertainment of slave masters. And this original sin, this foundation of suffering and gross injustice, curses the entire project. Cities built on blood do not stand the test of time. The ghosts of tortured workers will wander the empty, echoing corridors of the line, a permanent reminder that true progress can never be bought with human lives. But for now, as long as the oil keeps flowing, the conveyor belt of death keeps running, grinding the destinies of millions into gold dust. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Do you hear that? That isn't the ticking of a Rolex on a Saudi prince's wrist. That's a countdown timer wired to a detonator buried deep beneath the foundation of the entire Saudi economy. We are conditioned to think Saudi wealth is as endless as the sand in the empty quarter. We're used to seeing gold-plated Lamborghinis, diamond-encrusted private jets, and the absurd buyouts of massive soccer clubs. It feels like the spigot of black gold is jammed open permanently, and the cash will just keep flowing forever. But it's an illusion, an optical trick, the greatest bluff in financial history. The truth, the one they are terrified to whisper in the halls of the Al Yamama Palace, is that Saudi Arabia is an addict. A hardcore, chronic junkie that has been shooting up oil for nearly a century. And right now, that junkie is going into withdrawal. A withdrawal that might just kill it. The entire world, the whole global economy, is slowly, grudgingly, but unstoppably turning its back on crude. EVs, solar grids, hydrogen, nuclear energy. The green transition isn't just a trend, it is a death sentence. Every Tesla driven off the lot, every offshore wind turbine spun up in the North Sea is another nail in the coffin of the Saudi budget. Peak oil demand is coming, and then the crash. It's not a matter of if, but when. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10, but on a national timeline, that's a blink of an eye. And what happens then? What does Saudi Arabia have left when the world politely says, "No thanks, we don't need your fuel anymore"? Nothing. A void. They have no manufacturing base, no agriculture, no proprietary tech. All they have is cash, and they are burning through it in a feverish panic, trying to buy a future. The Public Investment Fund, the PIF, is dropping billions of dollars like helicopter money. They're snapping up shares in Uber, Nintendo, Boeing. They're dumping money into Silicon Valley startups that are popping one after another. They think they can just become a trust fund nation, living endlessly off the dividends. But the math is ruthless. To sustain the lavish lifestyle Saudis are accustomed to, free healthcare, free education, zero income tax, and massive subsidies on everything, they need oil at $100 a barrel, and they need it there permanently. What happens if the price drops to 70, to 60? The budget starts ripping at the seams. Deficit. That word is already creeping into their Ministry of Finance reports. Saudi Arabia, the country with the deepest pockets on earth, is actually starting to borrow. They are issuing bonds. They are sinking into debt. It is the beginning of the end. Vision 2030 isn't a roadmap to prosperity. It's a life raft for a drowning man. The Crown Prince is desperately trying to diversify the economy, pivoting to tourism, entertainment, and logistics. But those are absolute pennies compared to oil revenue. Do you seriously believe tourists are going to flock in droves to a country where summer temperatures hit 120 degrees and where having a glass of wine can get you flogged? Do you believe a booming industrial sector will miraculously appear when the workforce consists of either entitled locals used to cushy, do-nothing government jobs or disenfranchised slaves who utterly despise their masters? Saudi Arabia's labor productivity is among the lowest on the planet. This is a rentier economy, a handout economy that has completely corrupted a nation. The people have forgotten how to work. They are only used to receiving, and when the free ride stops, the social contract between the monarchy and the people will be shredded to pieces. We give you money, you give us obedience. But what if there is no money? Does only the obedience remain? Or does the rioting start? The younger generation of Saudis, who make up over 70% of the population, grew up on iPhones and the internet. They see how the rest of the world lives. They want to consume. They want the high life. And if the prince can't pick up the tab for this banquet, they are going to start asking, why exactly do we need a king? Saudi Arabia is a zombie corporation, propped up and looking alive only because of legacy liquidity. But the balance sheet doesn't add up anymore. The assets are literal mirages in the desert. The liabilities are an entire nation demanding bread and circuses. The bubble is swelling. And the needle that will pop it isn't made of steel. It's made of lithium and silicon. The age of oil is ending, and with it ends the fairy tale of the Arabian Nights. A cold, brutal morning hangover is coming, and when the fog clears, the world will see that the emperor has no clothes, and his golden cape was bought on credit, collateralized by a black sludge that nobody wants anymore. Picture a scene that would make any Middle East historian's eyes bleed. Imagine the desert, a sacred land where just yesterday they were chopping off heads in public squares for witchcraft, and women were reduced to black silhouettes gliding silently along the walls. Now, turn on the strobe lights. Crank the bass up to the absolute max. Welcome to the MDL Beast Music Festival in Riyadh. Here, under the exact same stars where the Prophet received his revelations, you now have 700,000 people jumping to David Guetta techno sets. Girls with their hair flowing free, wearing tight jeans, and some, God forbid, baring their shoulders, dancing right next to guys. The smell of hookah smoke mixes with something far sweeter and heavily forbidden. The morality police, those terrifying bearded enforcers with sticks who terrorized the nation for decades, have vanished, dissolved into thin air, locked up in their barracks like rabid dogs. The new state religion is hedonism. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, is executing the fastest and most schizophrenic cultural revolution in the history of Islam. He opened movie theaters. He let women drive. He's flying in Hollywood A-listers and Instagram influencers. He's building Red Sea resorts where, whisper it, they'll allow booze and bikinis. Bikinis in Saudi Arabia. It sounds like the punchline of a joke, but it's an actual business plan. But let's take a hard look at the soul of this nation. You can't just reboot a country's soul like a glitching iPhone in a couple of years. The country is violently torn in two. On one side, you have the youth. Gen Z kids who want to live like they're in Dubai or Miami. They worship the prince. They see him as a liberator, a rock star. For them, these raves are a gulp of fresh air after decades of suffocation. But there is another Saudi Arabia. Silent, deep-rooted, the conservative tribes. The clerics, the Wahhabis, who have dictated the state's ideology for centuries. They watch these dances, these half-naked women, these statues that are suddenly allowed back on the streets, and they don't see progress. They see Sodom and Gomorrah. They see the ultimate betrayal of Islam. They see the end of days. Their hatred is festering. It's a pressure cooker boiling over, with the lid held down tight by the secret police. Every sheikh who dared to open his mouth against these reforms is already rotting in a black site. But you can't build enough prison cells for everyone, and you can't put an ideology behind bars. It is pure cultural schizophrenia. By day, the country runs on Sharia law, and courts chop off the hands of thieves. But by night, the nation laces up its Nikes and hits the club. The regime is trying to sit on two chairs located on entirely different planets. On one hand, he is the custodian of the two holy mosques, Mecca and Medina, the leader of the Muslim world. On the other, a liberal reformer, a darling of international investors, and the sugar daddy of global esports and pro-golf. You can't reconcile the two. It is cognitive dissonance on a sovereign scale, and this dissonance breeds monsters. The radicals didn't just pack up and leave. They went underground. They retreated into encrypted Telegram chats. To them, MBS isn't a hero. He is an apostate. And in Islam, there is no sin more unforgivable. History teaches us a brutal lesson. When modernization is forced down from the top, violently breaking the back of tradition, just like the Shah did in Iran, it ends in revolution. The Iran of the 1970s also wore miniskirts and drank whiskey, and then the Ayatollahs took over. Saudi Arabia is playing with a flamethrower. By trying to buy the loyalty of the youth with raves and entertainment, the prince is hemorrhaging legitimacy in the eyes of the conservative majority. He's chopping at the very roots that have held the House of Saud in power for 2 centuries. The ironclad alliance between the sword and the Quran. The sword is still there, but the Quran has been swapped out for Netflix. It's a suicidal gamble. If the economy stumbles, if the oil money stops flowing, this cultural rave is going to end in a blood-soaked hangover. And that's when the people who are silently clenching their fists today, glaring at the depravity in Riyadh, will spill into the streets. And they won't be holding protest signs. They'll be holding assault rifles. The social explosion in Saudi Arabia will be catastrophic, because this won't be a war over money. It will be a war for God. And in that holy war, no amount of flying taxis or mirrored walls will save them. It will be a battle between the bikini and the burqa. And in the desert, the burqa usually wins, because it offers much better protection from the sand and the sun. You know the old saying, right? People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones? Well, Saudi Arabia isn't just throwing stones. They are hurling massive boulders at every neighbor they have, all while building the largest, most expensive, and most fragile glass house in human history, NEOM and its sister megaprojects. Take a look at the map. It's a map of a live minefield. Saudi Arabia is surrounded by enemies, like a fortress under siege. But the walls of this fortress are made of pure crystal. Down south, you have Yemen, a bleeding geopolitical wound, a war Riyadh started and is now humiliatingly losing. They are fighting the Houthis, guys in sandals chewing khat, but armed to the teeth with Iranian suicide drones and ballistic missiles. And those missiles hit their targets. We've all seen the footage of the Aramco oil refineries burning in 2019. The sky choked with black smoke. Total panic on the global markets. Now imagine that payload isn't aimed at a refinery you can patch up in a month. Imagine a cheap kamikaze drone built in a garage for a couple of grand, slamming straight into the mirrored wall of the line, right into that flawless, seamless facade. Shards of glass raining down from 1,600 feet up, slicing through the crowds below like shrapnel. Panic. A raging fire in a confined space. The smart city's life support systems crash. The elevators freeze. The ventilation shuts off. The Crystal Palace instantly becomes a death trap. It is a security director's absolute worst nightmare. Defending a single target that stretches for 105 miles is physically impossible. No Patriot battery, no Iron Dome is going to give you a 100% guarantee. All it takes is one breach, one single missile getting through, and the myth of a safe haven crumbles. Investors, that cowardly Wall Street money, will sprint for the exits faster than a startled deer. Tourists will mass cancel their bookings. Insurance companies will jack up their premiums into the stratosphere. The vulnerability of these mega projects is mind-boggling. They are the ultimate bullseye, a monument to hubris that just begs to be shattered. And sitting right across the Gulf is Iran, the ultimate Saudi geopolitical nightmare. The Iranians are watching these construction sites with a cold, calculating smile. They know the basic rule of gravity. The higher their enemy builds, the harder he's going to fall. Tehran is playing the long game. They are surrounding the kingdom with their ring of fire, proxy forces in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Saudi Arabia is blowing billions on top-tier American hardware, but they are buying 20th century weapons, tanks, fighter jets. In the war of the future, a war of drone swarms and cyber attacks, those shiny toys are completely useless. And the cybersecurity of a smart city is a gaping vulnerability all on its own. If hackers breach NEOM's mainframe, they can cut the water supply, kill the power, lock the doors, and unleash absolute chaos without firing a single bullet. An AI-run city is basically a hostage with a digital gun pressed firmly to its temple. And who's going to pull the trigger? An Iranian hacker? A Houthi rebel? Or a disgruntled Saudi dissident? Geography is destiny, and here it is a harsh sentence. Saudi Arabia sits in one of the most volatile powder kegs on the planet. The Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb. These are narrow choke points where all that oil flows through. Choke them off, and the kingdom suffocates. They are desperately trying to build a new economy based on tourism and transit hubs. But tourism requires peace. Nobody is flying out to get a tan to the soundtrack of air raid sirens. Nobody is taking their kids to a desert Disneyland while missile debris is falling from the sky next door. It's the ultimate paradox. The more Saudi Arabia builds, the more vulnerable it becomes. Back when it was just an empty desert dotted with oil rigs, they didn't have much to lose. A rig burns down, you just build another one. But the line is a singular, monolithic target. You can't patch it up overnight. Any strike on it would be a media catastrophe on a planetary scale. It would broadcast a clear signal to the rest of the world. The king cannot protect his own crown, and everyone will hear that signal. Their enemies, their allies, and their own people. The glass house is standing right in the line of fire, and the first stone is already in the air. There is a law in the desert, as ancient as the stars shining above it. A law that cannot be repealed by royal decrees, trillions of dollars, or the smartest algorithms on Earth. That law is simple. Everything built by man will eventually return to the sand. We have seen this play out 100 times. Look at Petra. Look at Hegra. Magnificent tombs carved into solid rock by civilizations who truly believed they were eternal. Where are they now? Empty shells where tourists wander with cameras, trying to guess the names of forgotten kings. Today, Saudi Arabia is hard at work building its own ruins. Only these won't be made of rose-colored stone. They will be made of concrete, steel, and smart glass. Neom, Trohena, the Line. These are not monuments to the future. They are monuments to this exact present moment, the absolute peak of the oil age, where insane money violently collides with insane hubris. It is an architectural Tower of Babel. And we all know how the story ends for towers built to touch the heavens. They collapse under their own weight, the weight of blind ambition completely severed from reality. The Saudi prince wants to leave his mark on history. He wants our descendants 1,000 years from now to look at his creation and stand in awe. But the irony is that the desert is the cruelest critic of all. It erases all marks. The wind, carrying billions of grains of sand, acts like industrial sandpaper, slowly, day by day, year after year, grinding down the sharp edges, polishing the surfaces until they dull, forcing its way into the microscopic cracks. The mechanisms will jam. The glass will fog over. The concrete will fracture under the extreme temperature swings. And then, the silence will come. That same profound, terrifying silence of the desert that has already swallowed countless empires. Picture this scene 100 years from now. A mirrored wall shattered in places, half buried by dunes in others, jutting out of the earth like the skeleton of a colossal beast. Inside, the wind howls through the empty corridors of the smart city, chasing scraps of plastic. Blind, useless security cameras dangle by their wires. The artificial intelligence has been dead for decades because there is no one left to pay the electric bill, and only the occasional Bedouins, the true masters of this land, will herd their camels into the shade of these massive ruins to escape the midday heat, sitting around a campfire telling legends of the mad king who tried to buy eternity. It is inevitable, because you cannot build life in pure defiance of nature. You cannot engineer a paradise in hell just by cranking up the AC. Saudi Arabia is a mirage state. It materialized out of nowhere on a geyser of oil, and it will vanish into nowhere the moment that geyser runs dry. We are witnessing the final act of a grandiose opera. The curtain is about to drop. The actors will go home. The sets will be torn down or left to rot, and only the stage will remain. The bare, eternal, indifferent stage of the desert. It witnessed the dawn of time, and it will witness the end. And the sand, this golden ocean of time, will close over the head of the Saudi dream, burying the trillions of dollars, the desperate hopes, the blood of the slaves, and the hubris of kings, silently, ruthlessly, forever. History does not forgive fakes. And the desert always wins.